After Star Wars was released, it became apparent that my story, however many films it took to tell, was only one of thousands that could be told about the characters who inhabited its galaxy. But these were not the stories that I was destined to tell. Instead, they would spring from the imagination of other writers, inspired by the glimpse of a galaxy that Star Wars provided. Today, it is an amazing, if unexpected, legacy of Star Wars that so many gifted writers are contributing new stories to that saga. George Lucas, from the introduction of A Splinters of the Mind's Eye, 1996. Hello there, and welcome back to the Skywalker Files from a certain point of view. I'm your host, Rockwell, and if you've been following along, you know we've been steadily working our way through Jedi Quest, watching the cracks form long before anyone is willing to name them. Today, we arrive at the Final Showdown. This is where long simmering tensions finally boil over. We journey to Korriban, the ancient Sith tomb world. While far closer to home, rivals harden, friendships fracture, and one terrible moment of silence changes everything. The dangers here are real. They're emotional, personal, and painfully avoidable. By the time the story ends, one enemy will lie dead in the ruins of the Sith temple, another will disappear without a trace, and the fallout will reshape the lives of several young Jedi forever. This isn't just the final of a series, it's a cautionary tale about pride, jealousy, and the cost of failing to speak when it matters most. So settle in, prepare for a darker chapter than we've seen so far, and let's open the files once more as we explore the Final Showdown. The Final Showdown was published in 2004 and serves as the 10th installment in a 10-book series, Jedi Quest, a project designed to bridge the emotional and ideological gap between The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. While earlier entries often feel episodic, contain missions with clear lessons, this novel carries the weight of everything that has come before. The book was written by Jude Watson, the architect of both Jedi Apprentice and Jedi Quest. By this point, Watson is no longer introducing characters or concepts. She's paying them off. Threads involving Granta Omega, Jenna Zan Arbor, Ferris Olin, and Anakin Skywalker all converge here, and the tone reflects that shift. The storytelling becomes sharper, more tragic, and far less forgiving. By the timeline, the Final Showdown takes place roughly a year before Attack of the Clones. During Anakin Skywalker's later adolescence as Obi-Wan Kenobi's Padawan, the Republic is technically at peace, but the cracks are obvious. The Sith are lingering on the sidelines, the Jedi stretched thin, and corruption within the galaxy, embodied by figures like Granta Omega, continues to fester. What makes this placement so important is that we're no longer dealing with hypothetical futures. Anakin is old enough now that his choices have real, irreversible consequences. This is no longer about lessons learned at the end of an adventure. This is about mistakes that cannot be undone. And crucially, As the 10th book in a 10-book arc, the Final Showdown exists to break things apart emotionally, philosophically, and structurally. At the center of the Final Showdown is Anakin Skywalker. No longer the wide-eyed prodigy of the early Jedi Quest novels, Anakin is talented, confident, and increasingly convinced that his instincts are superior to those around him. His rivalry with Ferris Olin has simmered for most of the series, but in this story it curdles into jealousy, especially as Anakin watches Ferris form a close bond with True Veld, Anakin's closest friend among the Padawans. Anakin's defining choice in this book isn't an act of anger or violence, but a decision to stay silent. That silence proves devastating. Ferris Olin emerges as the tragic counterweight to Anakin, disciplined, introspective, and deeply committed to the Jedi ideal. Ferris makes a single fatal mistake, one born not of arrogance, but of pressure and self-doubt. When his actions lead to the death of a fellow Padawan, Ferris does what Anakin can never do. He accepts responsibility. His resignation from the Jedi Order isn't framed as cowardice, but as penance, making one of the most emotional and honest moments in the series. True Veld, long established as Anakin's anchor within the Order, suffers a quieter loss. The failure of his lightsaber, unknowingly compromised, robs him of a fellow Padawan, and just as painfully of his trust in Anakin. By the end of the novel, their friendship is irreparably broken. True doesn't rage or accuse. He simply walks away. And that absence lingers far longer than any confrontation would have. On the adult side of the story, Obi-Wan Kenobi finds himself confronting the legacy of his own past. Granta Omega, the embittered son of Obi-Wan's former rival Xanatos, has spent the series chasing power and validation, believing that the alignment with the Sith will give his life meaning. Instead, Omega becomes a tragic mirror of what obsession looks like when it's left unchecked. His refusal to surrender forces Obi-Wan into a grim necessity, killing Omega in the ruins of a Sith temple on Korriban. It's a victory that brings no relief. Finally, hovering over everything is the absence of the true villains, Jinazan Arbor and the mysterious Sith Lord. Both vanish before the Jedi can confront them. Their disappearance reinforces the book's most unsettling truth. The Jedi may win the battle in front of them, but the real war remains unseen and untouched. The Final Showdown splits its attention between two parallel tragedies. One grand and mythic, the other intimate and devastating. And it's the way these stories mirror each other that gives the book its power. On the surface, the plot is about Granta Omega's final gamble, desperate to prove his worth to the unseen Sith Lord manipulating him from the shadows. Omega arranges a meeting on Korriban, the ancient Sith homeworld. It's a location steeped in rot and history, and Jude Watson uses it beautifully. The Jedi arrive in time to stop the Union, but not in time to achieve a real victory. The Sith Lord never reveals himself. Genazen Arbor disappears. Omega is abandoned by the very darkness he thought would elevate him. What follows is not a climatic duel in the traditional sense, but an execution born of inevitability. Omega is consumed by rage and refusal. He forces Obi-Wan into an impossible position. In the ruins of a Sith temple, Obi-Wan Kenobi kills him. Not out of vengeance, but because there's no other way to stop him. The tone here is somber and hollow. This is justice without triumph, and it leaves Obi-Wan carrying yet another quiet burden from his past. Running alongside this is the more intimate and arguably more important, the story of Anakin Skywalker. Anakin's conflict isn't with the Sith or with Omega, but with Ferrus Olin. His jealousy over Ferrus's growing friendship with True Veld pushes him toward a passive cruelty when he realizes Ferrus has made a dangerous repair to True's lightsaber. Anakin says nothing. He wants Ferrus to fail. Just a little. Just enough. That choice costs Dara Thaltanis her life when the saber fails during a battle with Sith zombies. The tone here shifts from tension to quiet horror. There's no grand battle music, no slow motion heroics, just the sudden, irreversible weight of consequence and cruelty. Crucially, Anakin is never directly blamed. No one knows the full truth, which makes it worse. He learns, once again, that he can live with his guilt, and the galaxy will let him. Thematically, the Final Showdown is about responsibility versus denial. Ferrus accepts blame and leaves the Jedi Order as penance. Anakin internalizes his guilt and moves forward, unchanged on the surface, but permanently altered underneath. Obi-Wan acts when he must and carries the cost alone. In every case, the book asks the same question. What do you do after the choice is made? And who are you willing to become to live with it? This is why the story feels so heavy. The Sith don't need to win. The damage is already done. The Final Showdown may be the last entry in Jedi Quest, but its impact reaches far beyond the single series. In many ways, this book functions as a quiet thesis statement for the entire prequel era. The greatest failures of the Jedi are not dramatic defeats, but small, unaddressed fractures that slowly widen over time. The unseen Sith Lord's disappearance reinforces one of the most persistent ideas in Star Wars storytelling. The Sith thrive not through confrontation, but through patience. Once again, the Jedi arrive too late and leave with nothing tangible to show for it. This directly echoes The Phantom Menace, where the Jedi defeat Darth Maul, but fail to uncover the larger Sith conspiracy. The pattern is set, and the Order remains blind to it. Granta Omega's fate mirrors the wider galaxy's descent. Like so many figures in the prequel era, he believes proximity to power will give his life meaning. Instead, he's discarded the moment he becomes inconvenient. His death is small. A personal example of how the Sith manipulate systems, people, and the institutions without ever needing to claim responsibility. One more intimate story in this is Anakin Skywalker's moral failure. This is not rage or fear driving him, it's jealousy, pride, silence. The lesson Anakin learns is not that his actions are wrong, but that he can survive the guilt without consequence. That idea will follow him all the way to Revenge of the Sith, where secrecy and rationalization once again costs innocent lives. Ferris Olin's departure from the Jedi Order also resonates beyond Jedi Quest. His decision exposes a flaw in the Jedi system itself. Accountability is uneven. Those who internalize the code too deeply break under its weight, while those who bend it quietly are allowed to continue. The imbalance foreshadows the Order's inability to properly address Anakin's growing darkness. Finally, Obi-Wan Kenobi's role ties directly into his portrayal in the films. Once again, he does what is necessary, not what is satisfying. The killing of Omega adds another layer to Obi-Wan's quiet grief. It's a reminder that he is already accustomed to carrying the moral cost of a failing system long before Anakin's fall. The Final Showdown is a heartbreaking novel on many levels, and that's precisely why it works so well. It doesn't rely on spectacle or grand revelations. Instead, it devastates through restraint, through mischances, quiet decisions, and consequences that arrive without ceremony. This is heartbreaking because no one truly wins. Granta Omega dies chasing a lie. Obi-Wan Kenobi survives another mission, carrying yet another invisible scar. Ferris Olin does the honorable thing and leaves the Jedi Order, even though honor offers him no comfort. Truvel loses both a fellow Padawan and his friend that he trusted most. And Dara Thel Canis is gone. Not because of destiny or prophecy, but because someone chose not to speak up. Most of all, it's heartbreaking because of Anakin Skywalker. This isn't the moment where he falls, but it's the moment where he learns the wrong lesson. He learns that guilt can be hidden, that silence can be survived, that the galaxy will keep turning even when he knows deep down that he could have prevented a tragedy. Watching that lesson take root is painful, especially when you know where it eventually leads. As the final book in a 10-part series, The Final Showdown doesn't offer closure. It offers fracture. It breaks friendships, removes mentors, and leaves emotional wounds deliberately unhealed. And in so doing, it sets the stage for a final that isn't about defeating an enemy, but about living with what's been lost. It's a quiet, devastating end to the illusion that everything can still be fixed. And so we come to the end of the Final Showdown, a story that leaves us not with answers, but with absences. Enemies vanish, friendships break, lives are lost, and the Jedi, as ever, move forward, carrying far more than they're willing to admit. The galaxy doesn't pause to mourn, and neither does history. This is the last time Jedi Quest will be talked about. Anakin Skywalker is no longer just a student learning restraint. He's someone who has learned how to live with guilt, and that may be the most dangerous lesson of all. Next time on the Skywalker Files, we step away from the Jedi Quest series and into the wider prequel era with The Approaching Storm by Alan Dean Foster. This novel serves as a direct lead into Attack of the Clones, showing us a republic on the brink, a galaxy growing restless, and a Jedi Order already struggling to keep the peace through compromise instead of clarity. The storm is no longer metaphorical. It's gathering, and when it breaks, everything changes. Until then, thank you for listening. This has been Rockwell with the Skywalker Files. And as always, may the Force be with you.